The first time my mother-in-law, Meredith, voiced her cruel opinion, I was taken aback. Confined to a wheelchair after a devastating accident, I had struggled to find my place in this new reality. Yet Meredith's words, sharp and unforgiving, cut deeper than any physical pain I'd ever endured. Little did she know, my response would not only challenge her perceptions, but also reveal a truth that would turn the tables in a way no one could have anticipated. At first, I was hurt and insecure because of Meredith's harsh words. However, it didn't take long before these emotions turned into anger, and I decided to teach Meredith a lesson. She had always lived a privileged life, and she was always judging others. Even me, her daughter-in-law. I was going to make her regret it. I took my time to think of a plan. Normally, I would have discussed something like this with my husband, Alex, first. But this time, I wanted to do it all by myself. This was something between me and Meredith, and I would make her pay for how she had treated me. Finally, I thought of the perfect way to take revenge, and I put my plan into action. When the moment of revenge finally came, I whispered one sentence in Meredith's ear so quietly that no one else could hear it. She immediately turned pale, and I could just see the panic in her eyes. But what was my revenge? What did I whisper in Meredith's ear, and why did it shock her so much? What was her response? After Meredith insulted me for the first time, I burst into tears. I simply couldn't believe that she had said something like that to me. It made me feel useless and embarrassed because I thought that she was right. I couldn't help out around the house anymore, and I needed help with every little thing, from eating to getting dressed and brushing my teeth. One day when Meredith had left after one of her weekly visits, I sat in my wheelchair, crying as I stared out the window. I asked myself, how did we even get here? Meredith and I had been getting along quite well when I first started dating Alex, but now she was being a real bitch. There was no other way to describe how she treated me. I knew that mothers-in-law could be tricky, so I had made sure not to get between Meredith and Alex. I respected their relationship, and I tried to forge one of my own with Meredith. To my delight, it had been going really well. That is, until the accident. When it became clear that I would need to stay in a wheelchair for longer than expected, her attitude towards me completely changed. She started making snarky comments about how lucky I was that I didn't have to help around the house anymore. Or she'd tell Alex how sorry she felt for him now that his wife was useless and he needed to cook and clean himself. Alex obviously did not like this, and he had snapped at his mother a few times, telling her not to talk about me like that. But sadly, that only made things worse. From then on, Meredith started completely ignoring me. She acted like I wasn't even in the room. She never looked at me or said a word to me, and as bad as that was, I was completely fine with it. I preferred her to ignore me and pretend that I did not exist over telling me that I was a leech in her family. After a while, though, I got tired of it, and I started going to the bedroom to rest whenever Meredith came over to our house. Alex was really lovely to me, and he helped me out with every little thing, never getting annoyed or frustrated with me. He was so patient and caring, and if anything, this terrible experience only made me love him more. He had offered to me to speak to Meredith about her behavior a few more times, but I had told him to just let her be. It would only make things worse, and I was sure she'd get over it eventually. I didn't tell him that I wanted to deal with things my own way, but I figured it was only for the better. He probably wouldn't have approved of my way anyway. I kept to myself, wheeling through the hallways with deliberate silence whenever Meredith was around. Our paths crossed sometimes, in the kitchen or the living room, and each time we did, the air thickened with unspoken words. I could feel her eyes on me, even if she didn't dare to meet mine. It was a silent dance, a routine that had become as regular as the morning sun. During these fleeting encounters, Meredith's eyes were fixed on anything but me. It was as if she hoped by ignoring me, the tension would dissolve, and she wouldn't have to face the reality of our strained relationship. The silence wasn't peaceful, It was heavy, loaded with all the things we never said aloud. The kitchen, where we often bumped into each other, had turned into a stage for our silent play of disregard. Our mutual silence was our unspoken pact. I never broke it, not when I saw her in the hallway, not when I heard her voice echoing from the living room. It was easier this way, safer. We orbited around each other like two stars doomed never to collide. And in this quiet standoff, I found a bitter kind of freedom, a relief in the boundaries we had drawn so clearly between us. The house felt colder these days, the walls echoing back our unspoken resentments and the laughter that had once filled the spaces now hollow. I noticed it most in the evenings, when the house settled into its nightly silence, a reminder of the warmth we had lost. Alex tried, bless his heart, to bridge the gap with smiles and small talk, but even his warmth couldn't thaw the chill that had settled in our home. Time moved on, as it always does, and with it, our silent agreement etched deeper into our daily lives. The divide between us was a chasm now, filled with the things we'd never said and the hurt we'd never acknowledged. We were like two parallel lines, destined never to meet, living under the same roof but existing worlds apart. In this strange, silent existence, we each bore our burdens, alone, yet together. I holed up with my thoughts, scribbling down bits and pieces of my plan on scraps of paper, like a secret recipe no one else could see. It has to be just right, I muttered to myself, tracing the steps repeatedly. Every detail was plotted with care. Nothing could be left to chance. It felt like setting up dominoes. One push and everything would start to fall into place. I kept it all to myself, tucked away deep where no one could find it. Not even a hint to Alex, who would have definitely had something to say about it. "This is something I need to do on my own," I whispered, as I folded the last note and hid it in my journal. It was my plot, my personal mission, and I wasn't sharing. When Meredith's next visit rolled around, I didn't escape to my usual refuge. Instead, I rolled into the living room, catching Alex and Meredith off guard. "Hey, didn't expect to see me, did you?" I said, a playful note in my voice. Alex shot me a worried look, but I just winked at him, turning my attention to Meredith, who seemed frozen in place. Meredith blinked at me, her mouth opening then closing with no words coming out. She glanced at Alex, clearly thrown off. "You're here," she finally managed, her voice a mix of confusion and caution. I nodded, still holding on to that playful smile, as if I was just there for a casual chat. It was fun, watching her squirm a bit. "Hi, Meredith. Lovely to see you," I chimed, keeping my tone light and breezy. Her eyes darted around, looking for a cue on how to react. Yes. Nice to see you too," she stuttered, her smile tight. I could tell she was struggling to keep her composure. This was it, the moment I'd been waiting for, and I was going to savor every second. "Can I get you anything, dear?" Meredith's voice dripped with a sweetness that didn't reach her eyes. It was sudden, and this show of concern happened right as Alex walked into the room. "You look so comfortable today," she added, starkly contrasting the chill in her gaze. I smiled, playing along, wondering about the game she had started to play. Alex was glowing, practically beaming as he watched his mother being all nice and motherly to me. "See? I knew she'd come around," he said later, full of hope. I just nodded, biting back my real thoughts. In front of Alex, Meredith was all warmth and cookies, but I knew better than to trust her act. It was too perfect, too timed. When we were alone, her mask slipped. "Still pretending to need that wheelchair so everyone will pamper you?" Meredith hissed quietly as she passed me in the hall. Her words stung, but I kept my face neutral, storing away her venom. This was the real Meredith, whom she hid from everyone else, especially Alex. Alex was just relieved to see us getting along. He didn't catch the icy undertones in Meredith's voice or the fake glimmer in her smile. "Things are really getting better, aren't they?" he'd say cheerfully, clueless to the undercurrents swirling around us. I'd smile and agree, but inside, I was always on alert, watching and waiting. I watched Meredith like a hawk, noting each overly sweet word and each forced smile. She was good at this game, but I was better at seeing through it. Her kindness was a mask, one she wore like a costume in a play. And as the days passed, I gathered my own evidence, my resolve hardening like ice. I started to keep my phone nearby, always ready to record whenever Meredith thought we were alone. "Still playing the victim, I see," she'd sneer, not knowing her words were being captured. Each insult, every harsh word I saved silently, a digital collection of her true nature. It was my secret weapon, hidden in plain sight, growing with every visit she made. Every snide remark Meredith made was another clip saved, another piece of the puzzle in my hand. "You really should try being less of a burden," she'd say, and I'd quietly add it to my growing archive. These recordings were more than just files. They were my ammunition, proof of her duplicity that would soon reveal her true character to everyone. These recordings became my guarded secret, a tactical stash of evidence against Meredith's two-faced antics. I organized them carefully, labeled each one with the date and context, and built my case methodically. This was a battle of wits, and I was arming myself with the truth, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. As weeks turned into months, my collection of recordings grew. Each insult Meredith thought she whispered in secrecy was captured, adding layers to the evidence I held against her. She continued her act, unaware of the net I was weaving around her with her own words. It was a silent countdown, and with each click of the record button, I was one step closer to the end game. Whenever Meredith aimed her barbs at me, I held my tongue, letting her think she was getting to me. "You really think Alex doesn't see through this?" she would jab, her voice low and cruel. I'd just smile, a small knowing smile, because responding would give her the satisfaction she craved. Instead, I let the recorder respond for me, silently noting each word, each pause, each sneer, as I slowly but surely readied my revenge. In the quiet of the therapy room, I was making strides that no one at home knew about. Each session, my therapist cheered quietly as I pushed past another boundary and regained another piece of my strength. "You're getting stronger every day," she'd say with a smile. It felt good, feeling the progress in my muscles, a secret triumph that Meredith couldn't tarnish. Every therapy session marked a victory. I'd leave feeling a little more like the old me, muscles aching but spirits soaring. Meredith had no idea. She still saw me as fragile, confined to my wheelchair, and a fraud, someone who was only lazy. Little did she know, each day brought me closer to a version of myself she hadn't met yet, one that wouldn't bow to her scorn. Only Alex knew about the leaps I was making in therapy. "It's our little secret," I'd tell him, and he'd nod, his face lighting up with pride. We decided to keep it from everyone else for now, a strategy that felt right. It was a card held close to our chest, waiting for the right moment to play it. It would be my ace in the hole. As I grew physically stronger, Meredith's words began to lose their bite. Her attempts to belittle me felt weaker against my newfound resilience. "You can just tell me you are weak and lazy and don't actually need this thing," she'd snipe, unaware that I felt less of her words and more of my own power with every snide remark. They were just echoes now, fading fast in the light of my recovery. Keeping my recovery a secret wasn't just about surprise, it was strategy. Every therapy gain was a silent step towards a bigger reveal, one that would shift the power balance for good. "Just wait," I whispered to myself after sessions, imagining Meredith's face when she realized just how much she had underestimated me. It was going to be a moment worth every second of secrecy. "Let's do it," Alex said one morning, his eyes full of the same spark that first drew me to him. "Let's have everyone over for dinner and show them how far you've come." I nodded, excitement bubbling inside me. We planned a family dinner for the weekend, a casual event on the surface but with an undercurrent of our major announcement. Our home turned into a bustling hub, with Alex and me buzzing around, setting up for the big night. We hung lights in the dining room and arranged tables carefully, all while keeping the real reason for the dinner under wraps. "Think they'll be surprised?" Alex asked, a mischievous grin spreading across his face. "They'll be floored," I laughed back, adjusting a tablecloth. We sent out invites, selecting only the closest family members to join us. "Just the inner circle," I told Alex as we went through our list. Each name was someone who mattered and who had supported us through thick and thin. "They deserve to be part of this moment," Alex agreed, sealing the last envelope with a sense of purpose. As the day of the dinner drew closer, a mix of nerves and excitement filled our home. "Can you believe we're actually doing this?" I whispered to Alex as we laid out the final place settings. He squeezed my hand, his smile reassuring. "It's going to be perfect," he assured me, but the butterflies in my stomach weren't so easily calmed. The stage was set for a night of celebration, the true purpose hidden behind the guise of a simple family gathering. Flowers adorned the tables, and the aroma of delicious food filled the air. "They think it's just a dinner," Alex chuckled as he lit the candles. "Wait until they see the main event," I replied, my heart racing with anticipation of the reveal. As each family member arrived, I watched from my wheelchair, positioned at the head of the table. Alex greeted everyone with his usual warm charm, his voice echoing through our home with laughter and welcome. "Glad you could make it," he'd say, hugging them one by one. I smiled, feeling the buzz of excitement as the room filled up, each person adding to the night's potential. The dinner unfolded with the usual chatter and clinking of glasses, everyone enjoying the feast laid out before them. Yet, beneath the laughter and stories, there was a palpable sense of anticipation. I caught a few curious glances thrown my way, family members whispering, likely wondering about the special occasion. I kept my expression neutral, savoring the suspense that tingled in the air. Throughout the evening, Meredith kept up her act, smiling sweetly at me across the table and offering polite, if hollow, compliments. "This dinner is just wonderful, dear," she cooed, oblivious to the storm that was about to break. Her facade of niceness was flawless, but I knew better. This was the calm before the reveal, and I could hardly wait. Alex and his sister were in perfect sync, managing the evening's flow like seasoned hosts. They refilled drinks, swapped plates, and ensured everyone was having a good time. This seamless coordination was crucial. It kept everyone's attention on the joy of the moment, setting us up perfectly for the announcement that was inching ever closer. Meredith, like the rest, was completely in the dark about the night's real purpose. She laughed and chatted, unaware of the meticulous planning that had gone into this evening. Everything, from the seating arrangement to the timing of the dessert, had been carefully orchestrated to lead up to our big announcement. "Just a bit longer," I whispered to Alex, who nodded, a spark of excitement in his eyes. As the last bites of dessert were savored, Alex clinked his glass gently, catching everyone's attention. "We have something special to share tonight," he announced, his eyes twinkling with excitement. All chatter ceased, and every eye in the room turned towards us. I gripped the arms of my wheelchair, my heart pounding with anticipation of the moment about to unfold. With the room silent and all eyes fixed on me, I slowly pushed myself up from my wheelchair, standing steadily on my own. Gasps and murmurs filled the room as I stood there, smiling broadly. "As you can see, I've been making some progress," I said, my voice strong, my stance even stronger. The shock on Meredith's face was unmistakable, and utterly satisfying. The initial shock gave way to applause and cheers from the family. "Oh my goodness, look at you!" my sister-in-law exclaimed, rushing over to hug me. "We had no idea!" someone else shouted, the joy in their voices fueling my own happiness. Their genuine reactions warmed my heart, starkly contrasting to Meredith's stunned silence. "I've been working hard in physical therapy," I began, holding on to Alex for support as I shared my story. "It hasn't been easy, but I wanted to recover some of the independence I lost." The room listened in rapt attention, nodding and smiling as I spoke of my challenges and triumphs. This moment, standing here with all of you, means more to me than I can say. As the applause died down, I caught Meredith's eye, her expression one of bewilderment. This moment of joy, this celebration of my strength, was just the first step in showing her, and everyone, how wrong she had been about me. Her facade of kindness had crumbled, and her isolation became apparent as the family gathered around me. It was a subtle yet powerful start to my planned revenge. I walked towards Meredith with determined steps, my gaze locked on hers. Each stride carried the weight of months of hidden pain and plans. As I reached her, I saw the uncertainty flicker across her face, her smile faltering under my steady, unwavering expression. "Meredith," I said softly, inviting her into what seemed like a simple embrace. As I pulled Meredith close, my voice was gentle but firm in her ear. "We need to talk about how things are going to change," I whispered. She stiffened slightly in my arms, the warmth of the hug contrasting sharply with the coolness of my words. "It's time for you to make things right. Publicly. Or else," I added, letting the implication hang between us. Still in the hug, I continued, "Your relationship with your grandchild will depend on your actions." Meredith's breath hitched, her hold on me tightening for a moment. "You need to acknowledge how you've treated me. It's the only way forward," I insisted. The words were a key, unlocking a future that Meredith had to choose, reconciliation or estrangement. I stepped back, looking directly into Meredith's eyes, deepening the gravity of our conversation. "Also, I'm pregnant, Meredith," I revealed, watching her closely. The news widened her eyes, the stakes suddenly much higher. "Your grandchild," I emphasized. "Think about what you want your role to be in their life. It starts with how you treat their mother." Meredith's face crumpled for a moment, the mask of composure breaking under the weight of my words. I need to think about this," she stammered, her voice cracking. The room's energy shifted, the family's eyes darting between us, sensing the tension. Meredith stepped back, her usual poised demeanor crumbling as she realized the full impact of the situation. The facade wasn't just cracked, it was shattering. Meredith's quick exit from the room was abrupt, but expected. The weight of our confrontation and her emotions too much to bear publicly. The door closed softly behind her, leaving a palpable silence. Everyone's eyes briefly followed her departure, then turned back to me, full of questions. I simply nodded, giving them a look that said, "Let's give her a moment." After a short while, Meredith returned, her eyes red, but her posture resolute. The change in her was immediately noticeable. She cleared her throat and looked around the room, her voice steadier as she began, "I've had some time to think, and I owe everyone, especially you," she nodded at me, "a sincere apology." With all eyes on her, Meredith took a deep breath and continued, "I'm truly sorry for how I've treated you. It was wrong, and I regret it deeply." Her apology was public and heartfelt, paving the way for a potential healing between us. I watched her closely, seeing the genuine remorse she was trying to convey. The room's atmosphere shifted from tense to cautiously hopeful as Meredith spoke. Family members exchanged looks of surprise and relief, their bodies leaning in slightly, drawn to the unfolding sincerity. "It's a start," Alex whispered to me, squeezing my hand. The possibility of healing, of mending what had been torn, hung delicately in the air. Her apology, though just a beginning, marked a potential new chapter in our interactions. "Thank you, Meredith," I responded, my voice low but clear. "I appreciate your words, and I hope we can move forward from here." The room nodded in agreement, everyone's expression a mix of cautious optimism. It was a new start, one that we all would navigate together, slowly and carefully. With the room already softened by Meredith's apology, Alex squeezed my hand, signaling it was time for our next big reveal. "We have more good news," he beamed, his voice filling the space with fresh excitement. "We're expecting a baby?" The announcement rippled through the family, each face turning towards us with widened eyes and smiles beginning to spread. The news of our pregnancy swept through the room like a wave of pure joy. Cheers erupted, and we were quickly enveloped in hugs and warm congratulations. "This is wonderful!" exclaimed Alex's aunt, her enthusiasm echoing around us. It was a moment of unbridled happiness, lifting the evening's earlier tension and replacing it with hopeful celebration. As the excitement settled, I took a moment to address the room, and more pointedly, Meredith. "We're thrilled to share this journey with you all," I started, "and how involved everyone gets, especially Meredith, will depend on the respect and kindness shown going forward." It was a gentle but firm reminder, setting clear expectations for what this new chapter required. This new beginning was charged with hope, but tempered by the wisdom of past experiences. We all knew that the road ahead would need careful navigation. "Let's take this one step at a time," I suggested, meeting Meredith's gaze with a hopeful but cautious look. The room agreed, their nods a sign of understanding that while the path to healing was open, it was still fragile. The evening wound down with a palpable sense of closure mixed with anticipation. We had confronted the past and laid a foundation for the future, a future that promised new life and new possibilities. "Here's to forgiveness and looking forward," Alex toasted, his glass raised high. Everyone joined in, their glasses clinking in a chorus of agreement, ready to move forward together with optimism and resolve.